Hilchos Shar Avos Hatumos Perek Shiva Asar. The laws of the remaining primary sources of impurity, chapter 17. We're dealing with more cases of doubt. Doubtful impurities. Okay, here goes the Rambam. Kazayis halacha aleph. Kazayis min hameis befi ha'erev. There's a raven that's carrying an olive-sized portion of corpse meat. Corpse meat, if it goes over you, makes an oyel over you, you become tameh. Now, he flies over the courtyard. Yeah, even a kazayis. Doesn't matter how high it is. If it goes over you, you become tameh. Safek hehil al ha'adam. V'al ha'kelim b'rshus ha'yachid. Safek loy hehil. You have a person standing with utensils in a private domain, and you don't know, did the raven pass over me with the meat? So, what did we say the last 2 days? Safek b'rshus ha'yachid. If you're ever in doubt of tumah in a private domain, at least for people who have da'at li'yishayel, they have intelligence to be asked questions, so they are tameh. What about the utensils? So the Rambam says, Hari ha'adam tameh misafek. The person, this is classic, he's in doubt in Rishus HaYachid, he is impure out of doubt. Of course, he has to be an adult, or at least a kid intelligent enough to answer the questions that you're going to ask. But the utensils are going to be pure. They don't have the intelligence to be asked. You can't ask a pot, hey, did the raven fly over you? No, that's not how it works. So he's going to be pure, the pots. Same thing if you have a guy, okay, here you see his bucket. So he's filling up water with a bucket. Bikli means with a bucket. He's using a bucket to fill up other utensils. The nasan ba'asara kelim, and he pours water into 10 vessels, one after another. So this really is not such an accurate picture because it's really impossible to fill up 10 barrels with one bucket. But imagine you had 10 small bowls or 10 small pitchers, okay? And with one bucket, you're just pouring one after another until you fill up 10 utensils. The nimtza hasheretz be'echad mehem. Afterwards, what do you discover? That there's a dead mouse, or one of the 8 rodents. Doesn't make a difference to any of the 8, but we're just picking mouse to make it simple. You find the mouse in one of them. That means that, what?
The whole thing is...
Well, there's a doubt. Question is, where was the rodent? If the rodent was in the original bucket, so then every single one is tummy. Because that means that the water from which everything came from had the rodent in it. But maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe the mouse was in that barrel to begin with. At the bottom of the barrel, and when you filled up the water, the mouse just floated up to the top. So it's a doubt. Safek tuma. So the Rambam says, Hu tamei, only the utensil where the mouse was found is impure. V'kulam tahayrim. And all the other ones are pure. Afal pisha kulam tamei. Even though you could say that they should all be impure. Shema hasheretz b'klisha mili b'hayatchila. Maybe the mouse was not in the barrel. Maybe the mouse was in the bucket, which you filled up originally. But it's a utensil. The problem is in the utensils. Utensils don't have the intelligence to be asked. We don't blame this doubt on the person. We blame it on the utensil. And so it's pure. Or some Rambams have oznayim. If the bucket had an inner rim. You don't see this too much nowadays. But
they call it oznayim.
Yeah? But in other words, it goes like this. It goes inwards. Today, most of our utensils actually have a rim going outwards. Right? The way you keep it not sharp is you fold it over.
Yeah, you make it oznayim because you can also fold it.
Okay, but this was the other way. It went
inside.
inward.
Okay.
Yes. So if you think about it,
Oznayim,
just not to make it sharp, you know? Yeah, I'm not sure. But the point is that when you turn, so now if you turn it over, things could actually get stuck in the inner rim. Right? So now it's very possible, since it's possible to pour out all the water from the bucket, but the rodent will remain in the utensil because that thing that's sticking out will hold it, the lip, there you go, thank you for the normal word, kulan tmeim. So now we are going to assume that they're all going to be impure. There's more of a chazaka here. Typically, the commentaries explain, when you fill up water with a bucket, there's more chance that a rodent should mix in there, because where do you fill up water from? From rivers. There weren't the cleanest places in those days. You probably would have picked up a rodent in the river. the well, exactly. That's where shatzim hang out. So it's more probable that the rodent was in the water where you filled it up originally than in the barrel. And therefore, we're going to say that you're going to assume that the rodent was stuck in the bucket, and it only ended up coming out in one of the barrels. Little spin-off on the scenario here, okay? Here it was one bucket, filled up 10 barrels. Here you have 10 buckets. Okay? You filled up each one in the water. One, second one, third one. Now you have 10 buckets next to you, full of water. Then you took all 10 buckets, and you poured each bucket into another container. 1, 2, 3, till all 10 are now moved over from the bucket into a container. However, you don't know which one you filled up first, which one you filled up last, meaning of the buckets. Of the 10 buckets which you filled up in the water, you don't know the order. Now, at the end of the day, you're checking the 10 containers, and you find one container has a rodent. So what do? Now you have not only are all the containers in doubt, all the buckets are in doubt. You have 20 utensils that are in doubt now, because you don't know where the rodent was, and you don't know which container or which bucket it came from. Well, he didn't say the rule yet. 1 second.
I mean, you can't be in doubt. Yeah.
So for sure, the 10 buckets that you filled up originally are pure. Even the 9 utensils that you poured into that don't have the rodent are also pure. Everything is pure except for the one that has the rodent. Because I could always assume, maybe the rodent was dead in the bottom of that barrel the entire time. Now that I poured in the water, now it's floating to the top. Very good. Now, of course, it's very possible that the rodent was in one of the buckets that you filled up originally, and then all of them are problematic. But it's a suffix tuma, and the kalim don't have das, they don't have intelligence, so we're going to rule leniently. But same thing over here. If the buckets had an inner lip, everything is impure. Because maybe the rodent was in the bucket which you had poured the water from originally. And since you don't know which bucket filled up which container, that could have been any of the buckets. So all the buckets are now in doubt. And then all the utensils are also now in doubt because you don't know what came from what. Forget multiple buckets, forget multiple barrels, it's just one to the other, okay? You're pouring out liquid from one utensil to another. And then you find a rodent in the bottom one. So same principles. The top one is pure. We don't have to worry, maybe the mouse was in the top one and then it fell in to the bottom one. Ella, maybe, and this is the better way to assume, it's in the bottom one. Same principle here again. They're utensils, no intelligence. So even Birshus HaYachid, they're going to be pure. Same thing applies in all similar situations. All right, halacha beis. Kupa shenishtamish ba taharos. You have a box where you stored pure produce, pure grain, and you're using it all the time. Days, months go by. Then you get to the bottom of the box, and now you find the dead mouse. Now you got to know, how long is it here for? Which ones did it affect? How far back do I have to go? Is everything impure? Says the Rambam, im yesh lo shulayim. If it's like this box, it has a bottom, and you use it from the top. In other words, it sits on the floor and you just empty it little by little from the top. Or it has an inner lip, but there's no bottom. In other words, imagine this box tilted to the side, okay, like a cabinet of today, I guess, okay? And there's a door which you basically pile up the food inside it, again, if it's this way, and then when you want to take out the food, you just open up the door and then the food comes out, the produce comes out. But the point is that the boards that were right around the doorway were kind of folding inward, so they could have held in some things on the side. So in both these cases, everything you use, you got to trace this back for months, for days, you have no idea how long. It's all impure. Because it's very possible that the sheretz was there, and you just didn't realize, and every time you're taking out food, you're touching it. Even if before you put in the produce, you checked it, and then you covered it. So how did the rodent even get in? Says the Rambam doesn't make a difference. Shemaim hagbas yadai min habedika nafal hasheretz. Maybe the minute you picked up your hand from checking, the mouse came in from behind. You don't know. But again, that's only if they have the bottom or these lips. If not, then you would have seen it. You couldn't miss it. And so it's pure. Even if, same case with the box, yeah? You used pure produce with it in one corner. You moved to another corner. And in the other corner you found the rodent. Kulan tmeyos. Even the earlier places are impure. Because we presume that tuma transfers from place to place. Lislois avoloi lisreif. Granted, only to make things hanging in the balance, not to make them totally be burnt if they're truma, let's say. But there is an element of impurity that goes with the box from place to place. Halacha gimel. Hazoylef es haboyer. Zoylef, funny enough, usually it means to spritz, to sprinkle. But here, right? But here the commentaries say actually it means that the word zoylef is removing wine from a pit or oil from a press. Okay, so we're going to go with wine. Hazoylef es haboyer. You're emptying out the pit of wine. Umile mimenu chaviyos, and you're filling a whole bunch of barrels from this wine. That's right. They used to press the grapes over here. The wine used to go out, and then you fill up the wine from here. So now you found a problematic thing here. So it all depends on how you did it. Im mile, im haya mashkia, kol chavis v'chavis babayru mamaliyosa. If you were taking every barrel into the pit, filling it up, taking it out, so not like this picture. Here you have a hose. No, you manually took every barrel, put into the pit, and a rodent is discovered. In the first barrel that you emptied, kulan tmeis, they're all going to be impure. Why? Because no matter which way you look at it, you have a problem. Here's the commentaries explain. If the sheretz was in the beginning, in the pit, and that's how it got to the barrel, so then all the wine in the pit is impure, because it was there the whole time. Even if not, even if it got to the barrel from somewhere else, but since now you took that barrel and dipped it into the pit of wine, so it also made the wine impure. In other words, all the wine got impure either from the sheretz that was there from the barrel. So you have a problem. But that's only if it was found in the first one. Nimtza ba'achreina, if it's discovered in the last one, hitmeya, so it is definitely impure, but the rest are pure. Shani Emar could say, achar shemili es harishoines, nafla sheretz laber. Maybe the rodent fell into the pit after you filled up all the other 9 or whatever it is barrels. And then the only one affected is the last barrel. What if you weren't filling up directly with the barrel? You had a smaller bucket, a smaller utensil, or maybe a hose, and you're using that to fill up one barrel after another. Now you found the sheretz in one of the barrels. So obviously, only it is impure, the other ones are pure. Shani Emar can say, either the sheretz only fell into this one, or it was there the whole time, before I even filled it up. Point is, here we don't have to worry that maybe the sheretz was in the original pit, and you filled it up with the bucket, that small bucket, and now that bucket made everything else tameh, because the barrel where the sheretz was discovered was never in the pit. So no reason to blame the other bucket getting it from the pit into the barrel. Therefore, let's say you were being very careful. You checked every barrel before you poured the wine in. You saw there's no sheretz. And then you poured the wine in. So you even covered it. After pouring the wine into it. Now you find the sheretz in one of them. Now they're all impure. Why? Because here the sheretz for sure came from the pit. Because you saw, you checked before, there was no sheretz. So you poured in the wine. The sheretz came in with the wine. If a sheretz came in with the wine, that means it came from the bucket. The bucket is the same bucket that filled up all the barrels. So all the barrels are now impure. Certainly, if the sheretz was found in the actual pit or in the bucket itself, which you were filling up with, everything is for sure impure, because again, that's where we assume the sheretz began, made everything impure, and all the barrels are impure as well. A person was, how do you say it, like separating crushed olives. If you look over here, right, so the ancient olive presses, how did it used to work? They used to have this big beam, and then here you would pile up the olives, and then you would use weights on the other side to pull it down, and it would press the olives. Now, once it would press the olives, so all the oil comes out here into a little pit, but the olives remained in this thing, it's called a maton, crushed, mamish crushed together. So then it was very nice. You could take these olives, and you put them on the roof, and they would dry up, and you have a nice little snack, dried olives. Okay? So here you're separating these olives. Umalo isam lagag, and bringing them to the roof. Here we have the guy on the roof. He's drying his olives. The nimtza hasheretz bagag. Oops, now you find the rodent in the olives on the roof. Zeisim shebamaton tohirin. So whatever olives remained in the press are all pure. We don't have to assume the sheretz was there the whole time. They probably came on the roof. Nimtza bamaton hamaton tamei. But if they were found in the remaining olives in the press, then the opposite is true. The ones in the press are impure. The ones on the roof, though, are pure. Because again, here we always assume leniently. Maybe the sheretz only came after you removed half the olives to the roof. The mouse came later. Nimtza ben kaisal lazesim, hakaisal lazesim, hazesim tahirim. If you find the sheretz between the wall of the press and the olives are pure. Again, we don't have to assume that the sheretz touched the olives. Nimtza sheretz b'seich gush shel zesim. If a rodent is found inside a pile of olives. So clearly, the rodent was there before they became pressed. Otherwise, how'd you find it inside there? The hagush bagag, and now this big pile is on the roof. Im b'seich shleisha yamin. If you discovered it within 3 days, from when you brought up the olives to the roof, af hamaton tamei, even what remains in the press is impure. Shani omer gush zeh min hamaton olav asharetz b'seich, because clearly this clod came from the press with the rodent inside of it, and that's it. The whole thing is impure. But if you found it after 3 days, after bringing the olives to the roof, then actually the pressed olives are pure. Maybe this pressed pile became a pile during those 3 days on the roof because of the sun's effect. If it's within 3 days, it couldn't have formed so fast on the roof. So it's for sure from the press. But here, after 3 days, maybe it formed over here. Halacha hey hakoyretz mikretzes min ha'isa. Somebody cuts off a piece from a dough. This is mamish disgusting a little bit for today's day and age, okay? Yeah. You pick a piece from dough, v'nimtza sheretz b'mikretzes, and you find a rodent in the piece. So what do you do now? Hamikretzes levada tmeya. Only the piece that you took off is impure, the rest is pure. Maybe the sheretz came in after you cut off the piece of dough. Nimtza ba'isa, ha'isa levada tmeya. If you found it in the dough, only the dough is impure, your piece is good. Nimtza b'seicha mikretzes, if you found it inside, literally inside the dough, not on top of it, afa isa tmeya. So obviously there's no way for the rodent to have gotten in there unless it was in the whole dough to begin with, so the whole thing is impure. Halacha vav, oichel tameh, you have impure food, shenimtzes gal'ina shaloi, or gar'ina shaloi, b'seicha kikar. You found its pit inside a loaf of bread. Here's a date pit, okay? So you had a date in your house that was impure, and you discover the pit of the date inside a loaf of bread. Oy al gabe tafshel reiteach, or on top of a very hot pot of food. Afal pisha ein aleh mashke tefeach, even though you found the pit dry, no moisture, which means clearly that the meat around it from the fruit was taken off a long time ago. Harehem tmeim, the loaf and the pot, or the cooked dish, are impure. Shani Emer, I can say, ha'oichel kulei nafal sham, maybe the full date fell there, the full olive, whatever it is. Maybe it melted, maybe it disintegrated in the bread or in the pot because of the heat. And just the pit remained. No need to assume that it was there. Sorry, you can't assume leniently that it was there from before, just the pit. You have to assume stringently that maybe the entire food was there. If you found it on top of the loaf, or in a cold dish, and then it's pure. Even if it's moist, and probably the flesh was only removed recently, because I can say, maybe the pit fell alone after the flesh was removed, because, or in that way, it's not going to make it impure. You have in your house a pile of good food and a pile of impure food. Then you found a pit from a fruit in the home somewhere. You don't know did it come from the impure fruit or from the pure fruit. You go after the majority. Whatever's the majority, that's the status of this pit. You had pure blood and impure blood. Pure blood means like just from any other rodent. Impure blood is from a rodent, a mouse or whatever it is. In the home. You find blood in your food. Go after the majority. Pure or impure. And there's a story. There was a story, they found a loaf of truma with some blood on it. The rabbis came and said it's kosher, it's tahar. So even if it came from a sheretz, maybe it came from the mouse while it was still alive. And when it's alive, it's all pure. Another doubt, it's a city that has both non-kosher meat and kosher meat. If you find meat in the city, you go after the majority. Majority is nevela, it's nevela. Majority is shchuta, good meat, it's kosher. Same thing if you found a piece of flesh from a rodent. You don't know, is it an impure rodent or a pure rodent, like a frog? You follow the majority of that city at that time. This is the rule. When it comes to discovered things, you always go after the majority. A woman is raking straw in her courtyard. And you find some rodent in the straw. It's pure, because maximum, all she's doing is moving it. That's hesed, like masa. Sheretz is not metame b'masa. If it's on top of the straw, then she is impure. Maybe she touched it. What if she was sifting with a sifter? And she found the sheretz in the fruit, in the sifter. She's pure. Maybe she didn't touch it. If it's on top of the pile, she's in doubt. Maybe she touched it. And the basic rule is any doubt in private domain is always impure, as we explained.